the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 60 degrees under cloudy skies. Our local Doppler radar. Today, cloudy skies, slight chance of a rain shower, high 65. Winds northeast at 10 to 20 miles per hour. For tonight, cloudy skies, low 50. Winds northeast at 10 to 15 miles per hour. For Friday, cloudy skies, high 57. Winds northeast at 15 to 25 miles per hour. The week ahead.
Tomorrow on AMHQ, Hurricane Joaquin churning in the Atlantic. We're tracking the storm and how it could impact your weekend tomorrow on AMHQ.
Need new tires? Right now at Pep Boys, when you get 3 Falcon, Cooper, or Hankook tires, you get the 4th tire free instantly. Plus, get no interest and paid in full within 12 months on your Pep Boys credit card. Trust the boys to get you there.
The cold truth is, there's no easy way to do your job when you're sick. Tough symptoms? Need Alka-Seltzer Plus Cold and Cough. Its 4 cold symptom fighters put you back in control. Stay unstoppable. Alka-Seltzer Plus.
If Angela Paris can dance 2 performances in a day with Always Infinity, you can make a whole night of karaoke. Always Infinity, the world's first foam pad, absorbs 10 times its weight. Feels like nothing. Infinity, always. Rewrite the rules.
Are you missing out on life because you're putting off neck or back surgery? Call Laser Spine Institute, the leader in minimally invasive spine surgery, to learn how a less than 1-inch incision can have you up and walking within a few hours of surgery, free from chronic back pain, and with no hospital stay and no lengthy recovery. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with spinal stenosis, bulging or herniated disc, sciatica, or other chronic conditions, call today for your MRI review.
When you're in that much pain and you live on painkillers, you really don't have quality of life. I feel like Laser Spine Institute was an answer to prayer. It's just the heavens had opened up and it was like, I can live again.
If you've been told you might need neck or back surgery, call 1-855-401-BACK for your MRI review.
Laser Spine Institute, a less than 1-inch incision, a lifetime of standing tall.
Tracking Hurricane Joaquin, the latest from the National Hurricane Center at the top of the hour, up 5 miles an hour, 125 mile an hour storm, still a Category 3.
And it is still moving very slowly, southwest at 6 miles per hour, but very, very low pressure. 942 millibars.
Gives us an idea of the strength and intensity of this storm. Now here's a look at the visible satellite. This is using reflected light back up into space. We can only use it when the sun's up because it's reflected light from the sun, but it gives you an idea of some of the texture and kind of the circulation, helps us really pinpoint where the center of the storm is here.
It can really tell a good story. You know, yesterday we were looking at the flare-up and the showers and thunderstorms going around that circulation, showing some of that intensification. But this is the updated forecast cone, and a couple of details to point out. Yes, there is a slight eastward, what would you say?
Little nudge or little,
yes. But you still see by Sunday morning a very strong hurricane, and then as it is off the northeast coast, weakening just a bit.
But remember, this is a forecast for the center of the storm. So the center of the storm, by this right here, could be where the word or the S is in Cape Hatteras, with effects going way out into the Carolinas, or it could go over. Look at Monday AM. It could be even over that, the word MON, M-O-N, because a third of the time the center of the storm goes outside of the cone. So there is a huge area of possibility where this storm is going to go, especially when we're looking, but it's really basically still a few to several days away.
All right, if you had a storm with a center way offshore, you still have coastal impacts, right? Because there is that push of the ocean. So coastal flooding still a big concern that everywhere from the Outer Banks on up into New England need to be concerned about.
All right, so let's get into what we know right now. Virginia is in a state of emergency right now. The DOT has contractors on standby, whether it's people getting ready to respond to the storm, including tree services, trying to get the power back online if power is lost.
And Hatteras Island, North Carolina, also taking precautions here. Generators, fuel, taking account of how many tourists are in the area in case there's a need for evacuation.
And the National Football League, the NFL, keeping an eye on things for the Eagles and Redskins game, and they're going to let us know what they're expecting to do just in case.
And that's a Redskins home game in D.C., and you think about how many thousands of people would be coming into D.C. to watch the game and then certainly be there. They want to keep everybody informed in case they have to move people.
Right, so we know that we are tracking what may or may not happen with Joaquin, how close it gets. Regardless, there's going to be a lot of rain and some coastal issues.
And they've had all those things in Virginia, including in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where we have our meteorologist Mike Seidel live for us. And Mike, the heavy rain threat is one thing, but that beach erosion is a big, big problem.
It is, and it continues at high tide here just a few minutes ago. And I dare step down there because I'm afraid I won't be able to climb back up, but we've got about a 3-foot drop here. You can get a sense of what happens when I put my foot on the sand. Watch this. Whoa, it just collapses. Here comes the wave and takes more of the sand out. So we've got deep cuts on this beach. We had 5 days of wind last week, and we've got more today. Let's go back to you guys.
All right, meteorologist Mike Seidel, we are breaking into you right now because we want to go to New Jersey, where Governor Chris Christie is about to speak.
He is live in Trenton. Let's listen in.
First, let's be clear. At this point, it's just too soon to say with any certainty whether or not Joaquin is likely to have a direct impact on New Jersey or not. Those paths have changed a number of times, as you've seen, over the course of the last 48 hours. And so we'll have greater degrees of certainty as the hours pass, and we prepare ourselves for what those paths will tell us over the course of that time. But whether or not Joaquin is a direct issue for New Jersey by Monday, we know that there is definitely going to be moderate and likely to be major flooding events in South Jersey on Friday and Saturday, with 5 to 6 inches of rainfall expected to come over those 2 days. At particular risk are communities along the Delaware Bay, in Salem and Cumberland counties, and the coastal communities in Atlantic and Cape May counties. So as a result, I've signed an executive order declaring a state of emergency in New Jersey as of this morning, giving our emergency management folks the tools they're going to need to ensure a speedy and an orderly response. I've been involved in conference calls with Cabinet beginning day before yesterday, had another one last night at 10 o'clock, and I want to review with you what the current set of plans are, department by department. For the New Jersey Office of Emergency Management, the State Emergency Operations Center was activated at 6 a.m. this morning to monitor the storm, and it will remain open as long as necessary to meet the anticipated challenging conditions throughout the state, but particularly in the southern part of the state as of now. Currently, the OEM is monitoring the weather situation, with our main focus being on preparedness for the storm, and I'll get back to that in a second. NJDOT is inspecting and cleaning drainage systems. They've activated all emergency operations centers, testing the communication systems and topping off fuel supplies. In addition, they've planned emergency contractors. They've been put on alert to effect emergency repairs if needed and pre-positioned debris removal equipment if necessary. DOT Operations Division has the ability to utilize more than 700 people in more than 65 crews with more than 500 pieces of heavy equipment to respond to the storm. Those are being pre-positioned as we speak to the areas most likely to be affected and will be ready to go when the effects of the storms begin to be felt. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection has assessed which beaches are most vulnerable. It's reached out to those towns to ask if they need assistance from the state to move sand around or if they need additional sand to be placed on those beaches. We've contacted all water supply and wastewater facilities to make sure they have emergency plans at the ready and backup power on site, generators, and fuel to run those generators. As of this morning, no rivers are forecast to go to flood stage, but we'll continue to monitor as the weekend forecast becomes more certain as to rivers. The New Jersey Board of Public Utilities has been in active discussion with PSE&G, JCP&L, and Atlantic City Electric and their leadership to ensure that their companies are preparing for the storm. Mutual aid requests have already gone out from these companies to other states in preparation for what we're going to be dealing with in the southern part of the state for certain, and what we may be dealing with throughout the state. For most vulnerable folks in our society, the Department of Health has reached out to hospitals, our federally qualified health clinics, our long-term care facilities, and our dialysis centers to update them on the latest storm projections, remind them to get their emergency staffing plans in place, and are set up for regular updates via conference calls from the State Department of Health. The Department of Human Services has spoken to their facility managers and the CEOs of the private facilities. They've all been notified to plan for the weather, which puts in motion emergency staffing requirements and food and medical protocols. Our Office of Homeland Security and the state police are working in partnership to ensure proper staging and availability of commodities regionally throughout the state. I ordered last night that we elevate our preparedness to a 20-day supply of commodities from a 5-day supply, and I ordered last night that those commodities be pre-positioned at armories, and most particularly that they be pre-positioned today in Atlantic, Cape May, Cumberland, and Salem counties so that we could deliver those as necessary beginning tomorrow. It's important to note for all the residents that they have to stay informed and continue to watch the news, listen on the radio, take precautions and prepare for any of the eventual weather scenarios. They always can go to the OEM's website at ready.nj.gov. That's ready.nj.gov. A few other things. The team that you see standing behind me and the others who they represent are prepared for this. Many of us have been through this before. With Irene and with Sandy, obviously. Right now, the weather reports are not encouraging. I will consider evacuations if necessary. Right now, we don't have a good enough handle on this from the storm tracking to be able to tell whether evacuations are being necessary, but slosh modeling is being done by the DEP and the Office of Emergency Management as we speak in conjunction with the National Weather Service to determine the inundation of water in various areas. And if I believe that evacuations are necessary in the southern part of the state, I will order them at the moment that I believe they become necessary. Folks should also know that we are making plans for sheltering if sheltering is necessary, not only working with the localities and the counties who have sheltering facilities already available, but also with statewide sheltering with Rutgers University and Rowan University to make sure that if those facilities are needed, that they're already beginning preparation for that as well. We also are going to make sure that everyone understands what they need to do to be prepared. So if you have a generator, make sure that you go onto our emergency management website to remind yourself about the safe operation of those generators. We had a number of deaths after Sandy based upon improper utilization of generators that caused carbon monoxide poisoning. We don't want to see that again, and there are instructions on our website to be able to deal with that. Get supplies that you need in. Do the things that you would normally do, especially I'm now speaking to our folks in the southern part of the state, in Atlantic, Cape May, Cumberland, and Salem counties. I need all of you to begin to prepare today. Rain is going to come later today in the southern part of the state, and that rain is going to be intense and continue through Friday. Now is the time for you to begin to prepare for hunkering down and dealing with the storm. If an evacuation is necessary, as I said, we will give you as much advance notice of the need for evacuation as we possibly can. The last thing I'll say before I take questions is that, we are not quite yet sure about whether this is going to be a single punch or a double punch. There's no question there's going to be a single punch that is going to start this evening, and there are going to be winds up to 75 to 85 miles an hour in the southern part of the state, in addition to the rain, which we expect to be 5 to 6 inches. Those are nor'easter type conditions, and everyone needs to be prepared for that. That can cause not only flooding, but also the type of interruption of power and other services that we need to be paying attention to, and you all in the public need to be prepared to deal with that in the same way that we'll be prepared to deal with it as well. But for our citizens in those 4 southern counties, that preparation needs to start now. For the folks in the other 17 counties in the state, we need you to stay tuned. When we have more information, which I'm sure we will later today, we'll be able to get you the information you need to make the preparations that you need to make for yourself and for your family. You need to understand that we're prepared, and we need you to prepare and not panic. Now, I understand that this is a state that's been traumatized by the second worst natural disaster in American history not quite 3 years ago. And I understand that there will be people who, when they start to hear this news, will feel an enormous amount of stress over the possibility that something severe could happen to the state again. 2 things you need to know about that. 1, there's nothing we can do to control it. And worrying and stressing about it will not change the path of the storm. Secondly, you need to know that the state is prepared to deal with whatever we need to deal with depending upon the path of the storm. And I need all of you to be able to do the things you need to do to protect yourselves and your families. And so go to ready.nj.gov. Make sure you go to the website to remind yourself of the things that we all learned 3 years ago. And we're prepared. The team behind me and the folks they represent are prepared. And we'll continue to keep everybody informed as is necessary. But I will be here. The Lieutenant Governor will be here. We'll be traveling throughout the state. And we'll have more things to tell you over the course of the next number of hours and days. But that's the best information we have at the moment. I'd be happy to take your questions.
Governor,
Phil?
Cape May County, particularly high percentage of low-lying areas there. Does that really exacerbate the flood risk?
It does. It does, and that's why we're doing the slosh modeling now, Phil. And for those of you who don't remember from 3 years ago, the slosh modeling, it is us taking the forecasts, interacting that with our maps and the various topography of the state to see how far inland we think water could get based upon flooding and storm surge. And so we're doing that modeling now along with the National Weather Service, and that will have a large part, Phil, in determining whether or not in areas in Cape May and Atlantic and maybe in Cumberland, Salem, where we might have to order some evacuations. We're not there yet, and if we are going to be there, my guess is we'd be there in the next 12 to 24 hours, and we'll let people know.
If I may, there's severe breaks in the plans for the contiguous barrier with the Dune project. How much concern is that?
Well, listen, I hope people understand now why I've been as assertive and at times as angry as I've been at some of the selfish opposition to dune building in this state, which has caused delays in the project. So the folks in Margate today, who are now in the eye of this flooding, I wonder if they think it was a smart move to be fighting doing this. I wonder if the folks in Bayhead and Point Pleasant think it was a smart move now to be fighting the dunes. And so the breaks in there, some of that are just the basis, Phil, of federal funding and the bidding process and all the rest. But some clearly have been delayed because we've had to go to court and have eminent domain fights with people who are more concerned about their view than they're concerned about the safety of themselves and their neighbors. And so, again, I hope that folks understand, when I've been as assertive about this as I have over time, not only in terms of my language, but in terms of the legal steps we've taken, this is why. And the fact that we don't have all this done by now is not completely, but in large measure because we've had to have these legal fights along the way rather than people, as the overwhelming majority of people in the state did, was to give voluntary easements.
And you are listening to New Jersey Governor Chris Christie talking about preparations ahead of Joaquin, and not just Joaquin, but the rainfall leading up to that storm.
And if you've been listening to the entire time that the governor was speaking, he says it is a little too early to make some definite calls because we still have to figure out what the exact path is of this storm. We want to try to clear up some forecasts. He did gave a little bit of a forecast, talked about that, and we're going to bring in hurricane specialist Michael Lowry to discuss that with us in just a moment. But what else, Maria, stands out to you being from that area?
Well, I'm happy to see there's a lot. I heard a lot of standby, on-call type of wording. So I think the heightened preparedness, but not, full-on freak-out mode is the perfect measure. And I'll be honest, I texted my family yesterday and saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I suggest you doing now, that you do today, looking at what we know now, so that later on you can sort of heighten that wording and be like, okay, this is what you need to do now. But it's good. It has the state of emergency in effect, and so that gets into motion. Those emergency managers, they're able now to get things going in their departments as well.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the forecast and also about the slosh modeling that he mentioned. You may have heard that, a tool that Governor Christie is going to use to make some decisions, because no matter what happens with Hurricane Joaquin, whether it gets really close to New Jersey, hits New Jersey, or goes way away, there will be impacts. And hurricane specialist and storm surge expert Michael Lowry is with us right now.
Developer of the slosh model, which was great to see that that's being used in a perfect scenario, because he's talking about a push of water outside of necessarily any of that direct impact from Joaquin.
And we talk about the model?
Yeah. The slosh model is our primary storm surge model. It's the primary model the National Hurricane Center uses to determine what the height of the water is going to be going into a hurricane type event. And this, again, is just the push of water from the coast. This has nothing to do with the rainfall, which is a separate story. But it's really hard, guys, at this point in time, 5 days out, to run a model and to feel really confident on where the storm surge or what the storm surge is going to be. You kind of have to run a suite of models. You run, maybe at the Hurricane Center, they run 3,000 to 6,000 different scenarios to kind of get an idea what's the highest water potential along the coast, and you use that information to make these evacuation decisions. But we're still a few days out, I think, from that happening. Usually you don't have to issue those evacuations until, for most places, the clearance times are about 48 hours or so, thereabouts. So that's within 2 days, and we're still 4 or 5 days out. So we have a little bit of time, but I think what the mayor is, what the governor is stressing there is that just keep listening to your local emergency management office, because there is that potential that they may ask you to leave if the modeling is showing that there's a significant threat from the ocean water.
Yeah, and he highlighted Atlantic, Cumberland, Salem, and Cape May counties, which are very susceptible.
Well, and especially low-lying areas. Those would be the areas that they would evacuate first. And regardless, even if this stays offshore, we were talking about this earlier, you could still see the amount of coastal flooding that would require some localized evacuations. Not necessarily entire towns being evacuated, but coastal towns? Yeah, maybe.
Well, with that, let's go to meteorologist Mike Seidel. He's in Virginia Beach. He is on the coast right now with some perspective on what's going on. And Mike, first off, I don't know if you heard the governor, but if you have a reaction to that, feel free. Otherwise, tell us what you're seeing right now.
Yeah, right out here.